Welcome to a very special crossover episode of The Inspiration Show and Behind the Curtain. Today, we're bringing you the best of both worlds, raw conversations from behind the curtain with Broadway talent and the inspiration behind their journey. Get ready for a behind-the-scenes look at what it takes to hit the road on a national tour, share the stage with some of the most talented performers in the industry, and navigate the ups and downs of portraying storyteller number two.
Our guest today is none other than Tyler Joseh Ellis, who is everyone's favorite corny cast member on the current national tour of Shucked the Musical. We'll chat about his experiences, challenges, his hilarious theater content, and what truly inspires him as an artist. So buckle up for an episode packed with stories, laughs, and a whole lot of inspiration from behind the curtain. Because we're corny, we're inspired, and we're ready to go behind the curtain. Get ready for a shocking good time.
Oh, I'm so excited. Let's do it.
Let's
So,
do it.
to start off, what drew you towards becoming an actor?
First off, what an amazing introduction. I love some corny jokes. Obsessed. And a shocking good time it will be.
Oh yeah.
What inspired me to become an actor was your
Yes.
question? I will answer. I don't know. I think I always was drawn to the idea of performing. I didn't necessarily start super young, like some people I know, that came out of the womb and like were put on stage in The Sound of Music as Gretel or something. I took me a little bit longer to get there, but I always, when I was a kid in elementary school, always said I wanted to be an actor, or I think I said an actor, an artist, or a chef. Well, those seem like the most interesting careers to me. But I remember I was actually at a friend's house it must have been like fourth grade, and he had a babysitter over, and she was, I think, asking us what we thought we wanted to do. And when I said actor, she's like, everyone wants to be an actor as a kid. You'll grow out of it. And I remember thinking even then, like, I think you're wrong. I think I really do actually want to do this, though I have no idea where to start and have perhaps never done it. So I think the idea of it was always fascinating to me. And I was such a fan of movies growing up and would watch movies over and over and over again. I wanted to be a Von Trapp kid so bad, to bring up The Sound of Music twice already in this interview. Then I did my first, musical in fifth grade. Just with my fifth grade class, we did Robin Hood, and I loved it. I loved how terrifying it was, but how exciting it was. And then sort of middle school didn't really do it. I was way too scared people would think I was gay. Of course, people thought that anyway, but I didn't want the doing theater to help that. But then when I eventually got to high school, we just happened to have an amazing theater program, and all it did was really solidified. Okay, so I was right all along. My elementary school self was right. There's something about this art form that I love. And eventually, after doing it for a few years in high school, pretty seriously, like really hitting the ground running, I was like, I think I need to do this in college and then hopefully professionally. But that was my long-winded answer to your question.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a really good story. And so, was there a specific moment that made you realize you want to pursue acting as a career?
Oh, that's a great question. I think when I was in high school, like I did the musicals, was in acting class and all that. And then I even did summer programs. I really tried to fill my time with this thing because I was like, whoa, I really want to learn everything I possibly can before, making the potential decision to major in it in school. But I think when I was a junior, I did a community theater production of Cabaret. I was Cliff in Cabaret. And I know my mom, after seeing that show, because, that was a little bit more, I had done like comedies up until that point, and for my parents to see me do something a little bit more serious, it was an amazing production, if I may say so myself. And I remember really loving that role and loving I always love leaning on my comedic muscle. It's like my secret weapon, but I loved kind of having to leave that behind. It was very vulnerable for me, and I loved doing it and loved how it felt. And weirdly, and we can get into this if it's interesting, but that Cabaret in general is the show that like keeps coming back in my life in some weird ways. And that was sort of when I was like, I think I need to do this forever. And then sure enough, I did. And yeah, I would say it was probably doing Cabaret, because I remember my mom recounting seeing that show and telling me like that's when we as parents were like, oh, he's actually serious about doing this. And I sort of felt the same. So I think we were aligned in that. I think that's when the page was turned a little bit, my junior year of high school.
Yes, it was your welcome in into musical
Yeah, it
theater.
was my welcome in into musical theater. You're so right, Alison. You nailed it.
So I wanted that is transitioning perfectly. I want to fast forward to more recently. In
Yeah.
2020, you graduated from the University of Southern California with a major in theater and a minor in marketing.
Yeah.
So what was your experience like studying theater and balancing both theater and marketing?
That's such a great question. I made the decision to major in theater, which was a big sort of, I hadn't really decided to do that until my senior year. I loved a lot of subjects in school. I was like, oh, maybe I'll be an English major, an education major. I always had this vision of me becoming a teacher. So I was like, oh, I sort of just wanted any excuse not to study theater because it really scared me. No one in my life, had studied theater before. I think my parents were terrified at the prospect of me doing that. But it just became clearer and clearer that I was like, I would go to college and be spending all my time probably doing theater anyway, like may as well get an education in it. And I'm so glad I did. And I was a BA major, which on TikTok right now, I think there's like fun conversations about what a BA versus BFA means. And it's just right now, like as we're speaking, there's interesting conversations on TikTok that I'm seeing. But I loved being a BA student. It meant everyone's like, you have to take classes in other subjects, but I got to take classes in other subjects. I like being well-rounded. I like my brain being kind of like, I'm sure if you would have asked me in college when I was taking a class that I like hated about like, I don't know, something I hated. I took like a planet Earth class about the planet and I was like, ooh, this one's hard. But I liked being, forced to learn other things. And then when it came to marketing, I always loved doing like PR, like graphic design in high school for ASB, for like student government and like, marketing the school dances and all that stuff. So I thought just marketing would make my parents breathe a little easier because I'd be in the business school as well. But it ended up being one of the best decisions I ever could have made because I would have several internships over the course of my college career that my in was marketing. And then what ended up sealing the deal was like, theater. So I worked for Alan Cumming for a summer. That's how cabaret comes back into the fold. So I worked with him and that was sort of like, I don't think I necessarily would have gotten that job, but maybe I would have if I weren't a marketing minor. I don't know. I don't know, because maybe I seem more well-rounded. But then worked for New York Musical Festival, which is unfortunately no longer as their marketing intern, and then worked for Disney for a year as a field marketing intern. So I got to do really cool stuff just because my 17-year-old self was like, maybe I'll minor in marketing. So in terms of juggling it all, I love being busy, and college was just 4 years, well, until of course COVID hit, of just pure busy juggling, but like doing all of my favorite things. So I loved it. I look back very fondly at college. I don't really know how I got by with so little sleep. I now need so much sleep. So I'm very impressed with my former self, but yeah, it was a lot, but I loved it. And so grateful for my like well-rounded education, because you can bring it into different assets and parts of your life as well. So if anyone's like, I think I want to be a BA, those programs exist and they're great. So that's my soapbox moment.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, who would you say are some of your greatest inspirations?
Such a good question. Again, a lot of my biggest inspirations are, I would say someone like Gavin Creel, like growing up and having someone like that to idolize, someone that was openly gay, at least when I sort of was introduced to him, like when he was in Hair, like he had come out. And I remember being like, this guy, and same with Jonathan Groff, the both of them, how they so obviously led with kindness in their career and led with authenticity, but that didn't hinder the opportunities they got. And that was really important for me to see. I didn't grow up with almost any queer role models in TV or film. And the ones that were always trying to hide it as much as they could, for their careers. But the two of them really were huge for me. And that also, that is in terms of musical theater people. But then when you get into people that really, I think, defined my sense of humor and like how I look at the world, people like Bo Burnham, John Early, like comedians that I really idolized. Cola Scola, like who is now having such a rocket moment. Like I've been a fan of Cole's for like 10 years. So the fact, and I've always loved their comedic sensibility. All of those comedians that all came up, the Caper Lance of the world, all of them really informed my comedic voice, which of course is how I started doing content or felt like I had a voice comedically or began to find it. Because all of them were huge inspirations. Catherine Cohen, all these comedians that I love, I would say.
Oh, legends on legends.
Legends on legends.
Legends. Oh, so what would you say is the best piece of advice you've been given by another actor?
Oh my gosh. These are excellent questions. Every single question, I'm like, good question. Biggest piece of advice would be, the second, like the moment you actually realize that who you are is when your acting career will take off, which is sort of counterintuitive as an actor, because you think, at least when I was, beginning to act and perform and try to learn how to do this, I was like, okay, so the secret to acting is how can you be as dissimilar to yourself as possible? And then when you're in, high school and college environments, you're often playing roles that are probably much older than you, unless you're doing like Spelling Bee or Spring Awakening. Like so many roles that you're doing in high school are older than you. And I played a lot of like these straight leading men. Like I played Ren McCormick in Footloose. I can hardly dance, and that is like so not my role. But you're in high school, so it's like who's technically like the one that could do it, sort of. And so I think I spent a lot of time just trying my hardest to like convince people that I could be different than who I was. It was only actually after graduating college that I realized and started doing content that I realized, oh, when I get to know me better and get to know how I am viewed in the world, how I go through the world, what I can offer as a person, is when you can figure out your secret weapon as an actor. Because anyone can pretend to be straight and in their 30s. But I think I'm like, not everyone could walk into a room and have the same instincts as me and bring myself to the roles. I mean, that's what any casting director, of course, now will tell you. But I think it was it must have been, I forget who was the first to give me that piece of advice, but it was another actor being like, if the sooner you can figure out who you are, the better your acting will be, because then you can actually bring yourself, which is the actual unique part of you, to the roles. And that's what makes it special and why you would book a role over someone else. And that sort of always stuck with me and has rung very true. Storyteller 2 being a perfect example. Like if I didn't know who I was or how I could have done the part or what I bring to the table, both comedically and otherwise, I certainly wouldn't have booked it. But I knew exactly who I was walking into that audition room and what I could do with this show and with this role. And I think that's what ended up, helping me book it. But it's only because I've done a lot of work on myself in the back end. And that's my biggest, hopefully an actor is listening to this and being like, get to know myself better. And then my career will change. Because that is true. And so it takes longer than you think. And I'm still, it's not like I've figured myself out completely. That's an ongoing journey. But I think knowing your secret weapon is you, that'll unlock a lot of doors.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great piece of advice. And speaking of Shucked, you're currently portraying the role of storyteller number 2 on the national tour of Shucked. So can you take us back to your first experience with the show and what was going through your head?
Oh, of course. My first experience with the show was I was hired to make a video for the show in previews to like promote the show. So it was a brand deal so my content creator hat was on when I saw it. So I didn't know anything about it. All I knew was that it was about corn and that I admired so many of the actors in it, of course. So I, went with a video idea in mind, was sort of there in, again, content creator brain, like there to film a video. And then the show started and I fell in love with it. I had not laughed that hard in a musical since, oh God, I couldn't tell you when, since the Book of Mormon came out. Like I was laughing. It was just unbelievable how hard I was laughing. It was just such brilliant writing, smart joke writing, and a completely original story. It made my heart sing. I loved watching it. And then at intermission, my friend who came with me, Sam, knew Robert Horn, the book writer, and Robert was in the audience with previews. And he said, "Oh, I'm going to go say hi to Robert." I'm like, "Great." So I was just sat in my seat. And then Sam and Robert come back to my chair, and Robert's like, "I love your videos." And I'm like, "I love the show that you wrote that I'm currently watching." So it opened up sort of a line of communication between, me and someone on the creative team. And it was a huge, like, I love this show, but my content creator hat was on. So I was completely not expecting to just love it as much as I did. And then with my content creator hat on, met the person in the creative team. And so the actor me was like gagged. It was just, it all, it was like multi-hyphenate realness. And I would end up seeing it 5 more times. I was on the Kelly Clarkson show in the audience to be like, coming up next, Shucked is performing. Like, I was such an avid fan of this musical. And of course I was like, maybe one day I'll be in it. Maybe if, who knows, who's to say? And then when the tour was announced, I just tried to practice manifestation and was like, I am going to go on tour, and I'm gonna tour with this show, and I'm gonna book this tour, and I need to make sure I'm ready to leave New York for a year because I'm booking this tour, and sort of believed it so hard that by the time I was in that audition room, I was like, I have believed that I'm getting this. So I pictured myself doing the role for so long. So I walked in the room, knew exactly what I was going to do. And yeah, that's sort of, again, I'm a yapper, long-winded answer to your question. But that was my first encounter with Shucked. It was not just seeing it as like a normal audience member. I was hired to see it. And then of course ended up falling in love with it.
That is so full circle.
Yeah, crazy. Cuckoo.
What is so crazy though is like, it's so unique because I love asking that question, when like, especially when it was a Broadway show first and then it becomes a national tour, and then the actors go see it and they were like, I just saw it on Broadway and I loved it, but they saw it like out of their own pleasure. But like, you were hired to see it, but you all kind of went out of pleasure like a little bit. Let's not kid around here. And then it's like, oh my God, I booked it. And you're like, man, I love that so much.
It's wild. It's like it all goes back to this decision of myself in COVID deciding to start making videos. Because, I would like to think I would have moved to New York as soon as I would and would have seen Shucked anyway, but I don't know. Like, part of the reason why I moved to New York from LA was because the content stuff started picking up, and who knows, if I would have if I had time to see Shucked, so it just all goes back to like, if a former version of myself just hadn't started making videos, who's to say? Like, I would be sitting here. It's very strange.
You had all your corns in a basket.
All my corns in a basket.
So this kind of piggybacks a little bit on the last question that we asked, but can you take us on your Shucked journey from your audition process to now?
Of course. I had, been telling my agents, I signed with my agents in, let's say, like July of what would have been 2023, July of 2023, is that right? And then when I had my initial meeting with them, they're like, any goals? And I said, I want to do the Shucked National tour. And they're like, okay. And I'm like, great. So I would bug them all the time being like, any news? Are the auditions out? Like, no. Finally in March of 2024, they finally sent me the appointment, and the appointment wasn't for 4 weeks later in April. So I had all of the material to learn 4 weeks ahead of time, which is relatively unusual. I had seen the show so many times. So I was like, okay, I know the show, which is great, but it's a lot of material. It was 6 different sides for the storytellers, and you had to play all these different characters. I know. Have you seen the show, Alison?
Not yet. I'm catching you in Toronto when you're
here. Hell yeah. Okay. But yeah, so the storytellers on occasion have to play some other roles, and there's a really hard sort of.
I know the show pretty well.
Of course, and there's like a phone call section in the sort of toward the end of Act 1 that is like a total vaudevillian act, and it's like a total juggling act that was in the packet. And I had 4 weeks. I ended up getting pneumonia for 2 weeks in the middle, which was hilarious. And then I was luckily able to get over pneumonia by the time the actual in-person audition came around. But I went in I had prepared this audition with so many different if a friend was over, I'd be like, great, just for a second, can you run all of this with me real quick, and then we'll move on and like hang out. They're like, perfect. So I had a bunch of different people do it with me to try to get used to, like, I have no idea what the reader in the room is going to sound like. I'm just going to try to get used to different voices, get super comfortable, be completely off book. So I went in, and it was, Robert was behind the table, who I had known at this point. So that was really helpful to feel like, okay, this guy, I know him, I know his sense of humor. And, the associate Derek, who I've worked with now so many times, there's a bunch of other people in the room, Stephen Copel casting and all that stuff. So I go in, and Robert Horn is a joke writer, not only like on paper, but in real life. He's always trying to make a joke. So me knowing Robert a little bit, I was able to like kind of like nudge him and be like, has he been doing this all day? To like the room, just trying to warm up the room. It's hard. Auditioning's hard. And then they had me sing Korn, of course. And I made the call. I had not prepared this ahead of time, but Robert was behind the table. I knew his sense of humor. The room was already warm. So I was like, okay, as I was singing it, there's a lyric that's like, somewhere between right now and dinosaurs roar. And I had somehow, in my decision making at the time, when I was in like fight or flight, because I was nervous for this audition, I went somewhere between right now and dinosaurs and pointed to Robert because he's like older. And I was like, in my brain, I was like, this is either going to kill or it's going to be like the room's going to be crickets. Thank God it killed. And because he's the most self-deprecating person ever. So I was like, perfect. So the room erupted. I was so happy because I was like, okay, perfect. Because that's my comedic sensibility. And I'm like, not only did it make the room laugh, but it's like, you'll see that I'm like, I love thinking on my feet and trying new things. And I'm going to try to make this role my own and that kind of thing. Ended up doing the sides that they asked for, which weren't all of them. But did them and then headed out. They were on lunch, so we actually all walked out of the building together. I was the last appointment before lunch, so that was also funny because I was just all like in the elevator talking to all of them, which was sweet, but also I think very helpful. They got to know me a little bit more, which was great. I was like, okay, perfect. And then they called me back, and I went back a couple days later, or maybe I forget the exact timeline, but went back a couple days later, and did all of the material, and Jack O'Brien, the iconic director, was in the room this time, and that's what I was most nervous for. Jack O'Brien, is such a legend, directed some of the most important pieces of theater in the last 40 years. Like he's been doing the thing, and he's in his mid-80s, and he's sharp as a tack. And he directed the original freaking Hairspray. He directed the Carousel revival. I'm shocked I'm not wearing that hat right now. I usually wear that hat every day. Like, Jack O'Brien means a lot to me as a director. So my goal was, doesn't matter if I book this show, but I need to make him laugh in the room. Luckily, made him laugh in the room. So that's all I needed. I ended up doing all the sides, including the phone call, and it was bonkers. And then I thought maybe that would be it. I was like, you've seen everything. What else would you need to see? But they ended up calling me back once more. And I'm so grateful they did, because I got to read with storytellers. I got to read with two storytellers, one being the one I do it every single day with, Maya Lagerstam, who I had known because we did a workshop a year before. And so when we saw each other in the waiting room, we're like, oh my God, that would be really fun if we did this together. And then started sort of practicing, especially the phone call together, because, it's so technically difficult. And she and I are very different, but also very similar. Our brains have now officially, after doing this almost 250 times, have morphed into the same brain. It's really scary. But we had a really special synergy in the room. Jason Howland, the iconic Jason Howland, who arranged the score, was on piano doing Korn with us, and we just it was just a dream. Jack O'Brien sitting there, Mike Bosner, lead producer, was right behind, Stephen Copel, an amazing casting director, the choreographer Sarah, making jokes. It was there was a magic synergy in the room. And when I left, I went, if I do not book this, it is fine, because there is nothing more I could have done. I prepared for this for so long, manifested this for 9 months. So finally, a couple days later, got the call from my team that I ended up getting it. I told them, if you call me on the phone, that means they didn't get it. But if you FaceTime me, that means I got it. Because I was like, I just want to know. I was on FaceTime with another friend of mine. Then I get a FaceTime from my team, and I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. But then they did the whole fake out situation, being like, you worked so hard, and and then they're like, you're going to have to pack your bags because you're going on tour. And I went, ah! And it was so special. I think back to that day, and I was wearing a Shucked shirt. It was just all so silly. And of course, then had to sit on the news for months. This was like May now, like early May when I found out, and I couldn't publicly proclaim that I was going on tour until September. So it was like a summer of me, of course, telling everyone in my life, but not being able to like tell the world or tell my following, who's like such a big part of why I got here. And so when we finally got to announce it, it was just like the most cathartic, amazing feeling. But that was my long audition sort of story with the show. But it feels so perfectly aligned. I feel like I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And how rare in life do you really get to feel that? And I'm sitting here in Louisville, Kentucky, being like, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Oh, Timothy and I were literally talking last
Yeah.
night while we were prepping, and he
Hmm.
goes, the day that you went live with Chase and Carson, you announced Chucked the next day, and then we both like
Yeah.
freaked out because Timothy has seen you in the show because it's passed
Yes.
him already, but it hasn't passed through me yet 'cause
Yes.
I'm in Toronto. So I'm seeing you get here, and I just cannot be more excited.
It's so great. I'm so proud of it. And I think it's just an amazing, I think we've upheld, there's a lot of differences. There's like a good amount of differences from the Broadway production, but there's just a magic with this group of people. I'm very, very, very proud of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, following along with being on a national tour, what are some of your favorite parts about being on a national tour and bringing the show across North America?
Oh, I think some of my favorite parts have been sort of unexpected. I love, I thought I would hate this, but I sort of love the constant change of scenery. I thought that was going to give me a heart attack. Like I'd gotten so comfortable in my apartment in New York for 2 years and became such a homebody and like loved my little nest that I made for myself. I loved being in New York. So the idea of me constantly moving around really terrified me. But what's so great about doing a tour is that now I've done the show over 200 times. And I think, of course, when I'm on stage, things you could just black out, and then 5 minutes later you're like doing the show, and you don't even like you can actually really go on autopilot. It's really scary. Like I try not to, but hey, sometimes it happens. But what's awesome is that at least when I'm backstage, I can't, because a lot of these theaters I'm just getting used to, and then you leave. So your surroundings, where you're staying, where the theater is, where your dressing room is, like all of that constantly changing, I think makes the show better, because it forces you to be in your body a little bit more, because every audience looks different. How far is the first row from the lip of the stage? Sometimes it's like a Broadway house and it's almost nothing. Sometimes it's really far away if it's a big pit. There's a lot of things to keep in mind. So that I think keeps my brain on, as opposed to on autopilot. So that part's great. And then also I get to see so much of the country that I never, Louisville, Kentucky, like when would I be here otherwise? Hey, but who knows? Watch me like live here in 20 years. Like I'm like a full Louisville member. No, not quite. But so I love that. I love, this is the first time I've ever done 8 shows a week. And I think what I love is that when a week is done and you're like traveling, we're often doing 1 week stops, sometimes longer. But when you leave, you're like, I just did 8 shows and leaving the city behind, but have made thousands of people laugh and have given them an experience that, sure, by the time they get home, have they forgotten about it? I would hope not. But even if people spent their time with me, and complete strangers. We've all shared air in one room, and I move on. But it's like I get to leave a little breadcrumb in my wake, like because we all shared something in this place. And I think that's like a really profound thing that I've grown to love on tour. And then my third and perhaps most important thing is meeting fans, like of people that have been like, I've been following you for 5 years. And I'm like, what? My videos reached this city? Like meeting people that know who I am and that have been rooting for me for so long. Like people that, because I don't really do this anymore, but I used to go live a good amount on TikTok. People being like, this is my username. I was on like all those lives. It makes me emotional. It's like a beautiful sort of tour of, I mean, the amount of people that are seeing it and then wait after to say hi and be like, I knew that you were gonna get here. You know, is there anything more you can ask for? Putting actual faces and names to the numbers that grow so arbitrary and like silly over time when you're doing content. You're like, 100,000 views, cool. And then you move on. Like you really grow used to it. But like, no, those are 100,000 individual people with lives that live somewhere. And to be able to meet a tiny percentage of them just has put the entire last 5 years for me on a completely different perspective on it, about how important it is and how I actually was reaching real human beings. It's incredible, incredibly special. And who knew that like touring always really scared me, but it's exactly what I needed to do. Like I needed to cut my teeth, get to know that I can actually do 8 shows a week and not just imagine that I could, but also to remind myself that these last, several years of making content mean something. It's not just like it goes away. Like your effect on people lasts. And if you're lucky, they show up for you at your musical, which is cool.
Oh, that's the most like special, incredible thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Do you have any favorite moments, songs, or scenes in the show that you look forward to performing tonight?
Oh my gosh. It's pretty special getting to do Corn. I mean, I get to do the opening number with Maya and like kind of usher the entire ensemble in. So there's something I, but before I really cherish right before the show starts, as there's like a cell phone-ish announcement that sort of happens, that Peanut does, and it's like on a radio on stage. And while that's happening, Maya and I are like looking at each other and we really quickly run the dialogue in the opening just to make sure it's like completely fresh in the brain. We actually do that with every single scene before we enter. We run every single thing because it's a lot of information and a lot of like similar sort of starting words. And we found very early on that running all of the dialogue beforehand really quickly, now we do it in like a silly way, but it really does make sure that it's super top of mind before you enter, because otherwise you could be looking out into the audience and being like, meanwhile, oh, like, and completely space out. And I'm like, that's happened a couple times and we just try to avoid that at all costs. So every night I really look forward to Maya and I's moments, but specifically our moment before the top of the show. We run all the dialogue, and then the band goes ba 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 ba, sort of like that. but Maya and I then sing that together, like ba 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 ba, and then we say love you, and then we count 1, 2, and then go on stage. And we've done that since the very beginning. And that's like a little tradition that I love. So I really look forward to that every night. Maya and I have become like siblings. It's really bonkers. And other moments in the show, the phone call, as I mentioned before, just feels like this big feat every time we get there. And it's such a beautiful dance that I just have grown very proud of. I was so in awe of it when I saw it on Broadway. So getting to like feel it in my bones and get to do it myself feels very cool. And I love the Act 1 finale. I love a good old-fashioned Act 1 finale where like themes from the first act have all come to a head. It's dramatic. It's like One Day More-ish. And it's like it's just chaos. And like we're kind of orchestrating the chaos, which is always so much fun. So I really look forward to the Act 1 finale every night as well. And then of course, the very end of the show, which I'm not going to give away, but that always feels like when we're finally, approaching the last few moments, it feels like, you just like went to war for like 2.5 hours with this group of people on stage, and hopefully you've affected, the people in the audience. So those are probably the moments I look forward to the most.
Yeah, those are some great moments. And speaking of telling stories to the audience, can you share us your favorite tour story so far?
Favorite tour story? Oh my gosh. Oh my God, there's a million. What would be my favorite? Excellent question. Oh, well, this is sort of like I can laugh at it now, is how I'll preface it. But we were
I'm
in
scared.
we were in Chicago, and we then, after our 2 week stay in Chicago, which was super cold but delightful, I loved Chicago. We had to then drive to East Lansing, Michigan, which isn't like too far away, but whatever. But you could opt to do the bus the following day on your Monday, or we didn't have like a 2 show Sunday. So I decided, oh, I wanted a full day off in East Lansing, so I'll leave Sunday night on that bus. The thing about that bus is it kept getting delayed. It was super snowy, and like there was all these problems. So it was hours and hours and hours of us sitting waiting for this thing, which of course is like instant regret. I could have had like another night in Chicago, but alas. So we get on the bus and very quickly realize that the air conditioning, or sorry, the heating isn't working. And meanwhile, it's like, what, the single digits outside, maybe less. And it was freezing, like freezing. And it was blizzard. It was like super, super cold. And we're all shivering. I have all of my layers on, and it's still too cold. And we're driving to East Lansing, and it's getting super late. And like, I didn't see this, but this bus driver, the car ahead of us like skidded because of how slippery the road, skidded off the road, and the driver just like went by. Like it was treacherous territory, treacherous. We finally ended up getting there, and in one piece. And of course, like we still had to walk through the snow to the hotel because it wasn't quite, the bus could only go so far, and it was just like miserable. But it was after, I got through it, and you can wake up the next day and take a warm shower and not feel like you're gonna die. That really felt as though I was like, but now I'm on tour. Like now I get to like wear the badge of like, this is what tour can look like. It can be treacherous, and you're doing a musical about corn, so it's silly, but like your day to day and getting from point A to point B can be anything but straightforward. And that was a perfect example. But I would say, looking back, I think it's hilarious. At the time, perhaps I didn't think that, but I would say that's one of my favorite tour stories, because it really feels like, you earn your stripes when you go through stuff like that, especially as a cast, because like everyone on that bus are bonded for life. Like we all went through that together. So I would say I guess it's the first thing to come to mind. There's many positive stories, but I'll leave you with that one. That's the one I'll give.
And that's your welcome into tour. And I must say, as a Canadian, my heart goes out to you.
Yes. Oh my goodness gracious.
My heart goes out to you.
The snow in that way, traveling in that cold. Wow.
And I remember how cold it was because at the stage door, I had hand warmers.
Yeah.
Like hand warmers, and I was giving them out to some of the cast members as they were coming out. And it
Like,
was
please.
and it was starting to snow as well.
Yeah,
that
it
night.
was cold. I mean, when we went to so many, if you look at what our tour schedule was, we're essentially we went to all of the really cold places in the winter, and we're going to all the really warm places in the summer. So like next month, we're all Florida. So it's unfortunately, like I would have loved for it to be the inverse, but I get to look back and be like super proud of the fact that I survived the winter. It was brutal.
I'm so happy that you're hitting Toronto when it's gorgeous.
Oh, yes. And it's a 5 week stay in Toronto.
Yes,
I mean,
so
crazy. It's up in the air if I'm going to continue with it, because my contract technically ends in October. But I mean, it's definitely on the table. I could do the show forever. So it's like a big question mark. But I would love to play Toronto. I mean, come on. 5 weeks in Toronto. I've never been to Canada.
No, okay,
I
so
know.
okay, so you have to text me, and like I'm like planning. Okay.
Okay, good.
So before we wrap up the
Yeah.
Shuck section of the interview, Allison and I planned a little game.
Ooh.
We're gonna see how many corn products you can name in 30 seconds.
Okay.
Corn products? Okay.
Yes. Timothy
So
and I did
anything,
it last night.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, are you
And we
ready?
could not get it that much.
Oh, it's
Anyone
hard.
else?
Okay.
Yeah,
Get
ready?
set, go.
Okay. Go.
Cornbread, popcorn, canned corn, creamed corn, corn on the cob, high fructose corn syrup, golden corn syrup, cornmeal, corn, elote, corn tortilla,
And that's time.
Okay, that wasn't bad. That wasn't bad.
That's
Better
pretty
than
good.
Timothy and I did last night.
Yeah.
So I have
Oof.
to say, you killed that.
Oh,
I
thank
was like,
you.
all we got was like corn on the cob, corn pudding.
Oh,
Popcorn.
I didn't get corn pudding. I should have gotten that one. There's plenty I missed. Corn
Oh,
nuts.
corn.
Missed corn
Oh, that was
nuts.
fun. Oh, that was
Yeah.
fun. Oh, I love that. So, alongside from being an incredible storyteller on stage, you have taken to social media to share some hilarious theater stories and content. So, what inspired you to take to social media and start sharing content?
Oh, it was so, I mean, I had worked again, as I said, in marketing, so I had a lot of experience in using social media as a tool. Like I was aware of that, but that is not how I approached doing content at first. I really was just bored. I was doing a production of Stephen Sondheim and James Levine's Passion, getting my equity card, like while I was finishing up my degree in college in a production that was happening in Pasadena, and we were in previews, and then COVID hit. So there was just so much potential energy that was not being used like creatively, and I started, getting down, and I downloaded TikTok, as I always say, like every time anyone asks me that, I did download it as a joke. I downloaded it to try to make my younger sibling laugh because I know that they would cringe at the fact. Now, of course, we both are obsessed with TikTok, but at the time, it was like this is an app for children to do little dances and lip syncs. Like that is absolutely what I thought the app was. So when I downloaded it, my first video, which I think is still up if you scroll all the way down, was me filming my younger sibling being like, I'm on TikTok, making my first TikTok, trying to make them laugh. And then they're like burying their face in their hands. Like they really thought it was so embarrassing. But very quickly, algorithm gets to know me. And I was like, oh wait, there's like really funny things and entertaining things that help pass this, excruciating time of that early pandemic vibe. That was just so scary. And I was also a senior in college being like, I'm missing every single event that I've watched all of my friends older than me for now 3 years do. And I'm missing this dread, right? So it took some of the sting out, and then I started posting as I would post on a close friend story or a Finsta or something. I was just trying to, make the 4 of my friends that had TikTok at that point laugh. And when I was doing that for a while, and then when I started making videos just about theater, like similar in terms of like how silly I was being, but theater videos nonetheless, I would notice comments come through being like, oh, I was supposed to do Into the Woods my senior year and it was canceled, and you making a joke about Into the Woods really made my day. And I'm like, oh wait, I'm not the only theater kid starved for theater stuff and laughing and theater kid material. So that's when I started really considering, I'm like, okay, well, if I keep making videos about theater, which is like my favorite thing to talk about anyway, then there's a built-in audience because we're all feeling the same sort of feelings. So I then made my first that theater bitch video, which was I was in my senior year house I was living in with all my friends, and I was just in my room and put on a little bandana and made this video, and it did really well, and I was like, great. And the great thing about doing that character was that it was super repeatable, which is like the trick for being a content creator. It's like, can you figure out something that you like to do and also that is really repeatable? I always use Jake Shane as a perfect example. He uses user-generated really funny content, like comments, and then turns them into videos. When I saw his first like few videos, I went, that's a genius. Jake Shane's a genius. He's going to take over the world. And sure enough, he has. So that was sort of my, not quite as big, but my sort of moment of, okay, great. I could just do this forever. I have an endless knowledge of this freaking art form and how annoying people in it can be. So I started doing that. And then from there, sprouted out to making other stuff, graduated virtually, ended up moving to West Hollywood with a friend, kept making content, making that, a priority while I was doing a couple of day jobs on the side. And it of course snowballed into something that became a career and became like, oh, I have like a team now. And like, I was just texting them earlier. I'm like, it's wild how far it has come, despite my having not posted on TikTok in 2 months. I'm like, it is so hard to make content on the road, especially my type of content, which is like sketch content, but I digress. But in the beginning, it was literally just to make, 1, my friends laugh, and then 2, to make theater kids laugh. And my goal has never changed. My goal is always, how can I make theater kids laugh? Because theater kids turn into theater adults. And I've met and have become friends with some of my heroes by just me being in my room and trying to make people starved for theater content laugh. And it has completely changed the course of my life. The best decision I ever could have made. And I sit here before you having done that, which is bonkers. Never in a million years, if you asked my like earlier in college self that this would be happening, I mean, I certainly wouldn't believe you. But yeah, it's this thing that you want to keep it feeding the fire though. You want to keep, making stuff, but at the same time, like I was making stuff so that I could be in a position like this on a tour or doing what I really, really loved. And, and I'm writing more long form stuff. I wrote a musical and I have like, so it's tough. It's like a push and pull of like, I really do want to keep making this short form content for all these people that have followed me for so long. But I also want to put my creative energy into something even more lasting. So that's my current present day 2025 Tyler's sort of journey with social media, is figuring out the balance of it all. But yeah, that's how it all started. It's a bonkers journey. It's cuckoo bananas, and I wouldn't change anything.
That's a great journey though. And over the years you've been doing social media, you've made a bunch of content. So what is your favorite type of content to make? And do you have a favorite reel or video that stands out to you the most?
Oh my gosh. My favorite stuff to make is, I love making the like end of act one videos. Like I like the classic. I just love seeing theater. So like
awesome.
my favorite thing is like, saying the last line and then it's like boom and it's a blackout. Like I love making those because those make me laugh so hard making them. So I love those. I loved making myself a pre-show announcement videos, which I did for a long time. I like did so many freaking shows of that because it was stuff that I have to like exercise my writing muscle, which is sort of all of the content I make now is all, sketch writing based. And because it feels so fun. It feels like you're really doing something creative and putting it into the world, so I love making my fake monologues. I love, doing all of that because it is sort of like a writing exercise on top of just making silly content. So I love I don't know, and to pick a favorite, some of those theater kid videos straight to camera are some of my favorites just because they're so brutal and so specific. But yeah, so those those are the ones I definitely hear the most from people being like, "Oh my God, you're seeing your theater kid videos," and because I think those are the ones that like penetrate the soul the most. But yeah, every time I make one of those, I gotta make another one of them because it's just a blast. Creating a monologue of a monster, but like talking about doing a community theater production of Spring Awakening is like my favorite thing to do. It is so much fun.
I think I can speak for every single kid. And if not, then I'll just speak for myself. And I know I can do that when I say nobody makes us laugh harder than you do.
Oh, that is very nice.
Oh,
that is super kind. Thank you. That's my goal. Like to make you all laugh. That has always been number one. And I feel like I get to do that 8 times a week with this show. I really love getting to make people laugh. And getting to not do that through my phone screen, but in person is so rewarding. It is so to be actually able to hear the laughter as opposed to reading a ha 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 in your comment section is really, really helpful. So I am really grateful that actually making the content stuff ended up helping me get to this situation. It's very profound for me.
So, alongside shining on stage and on social media, you have also shined in many TV and film projects such as The Sex Life of Girls, That 90s Show, and more. So, what are the biggest differences for you as a performer, and what draws you to one medium over the other, and like the differences, and just kind of all things that?
Oh, it's another great question. It's film and TV always fascinated me the most because it's so much harder to break into than theater. Anyone can put on a show, right? But with film and TV, especially when you get to like this slightly higher, a studio's putting on, it's like a little bit fancier of a project. It really scared me in a way that I chased. I was like, I really want to get to know this medium better. I still do. I really look forward to spending a lot more time on sets because I want to know what everyone does. In theater, I know what everyone in the building does. But with film, in TV, it's a little bit different. I'm like, what does the first AD do? And what what are the PAs responsible for? Like I still am a little bit illiterate when it comes to stuff like that. But when it comes to the work and acting on camera, my advice before really comes into play when it comes to doing on camera work is you got to be so aware of yourself and your instrument. It is more subtle. It's you don't get instant gratification, and you are so much more at the will of the director and the editor. So it's like you're really there to show up and do what is required of you, and then leave. Whereas theater, it's like you get to be in the room and you figure things out and rehearse. Whereas it is not the case with film TV. When it came to the Sex Lives of College Girls, we were filming like horrible height of pandemic vibes. And we couldn't be in, we were filming inside, and we couldn't, and there was a bunch of extras. It was a party scene, and we couldn't be inside without masks for more than 11 minutes at a time. So you could only get about a take or two in before everyone had to clear out and they had to circulate the air completely. So time was very much of the essence, and you felt that in the room with like the people behind the camera, with our director, with Mindy Kaling, with Justin Noble. All of them were like, we gotta get this done. So your job as an actor isn't like to be like, maybe I'll try it this way, maybe I'll do it this way. It is just to make sure they have at least 2 great takes before they completely move on. I didn't even know they were doing my coverage when they were doing my coverage. I did not know they were on my close-up when they did. Then they moved on. I'm like, oh my God, okay, cool. Like it's so much more like you just have to be there and do your job, and to the best of your ability, and then move on. It's a lot of waiting. It's interesting. It's a different beast, but also you can't be super, super self-conscious because that all reads in your face. So that's the biggest thing for me is whenever I do a film TV thing, it's how relaxed and natural can I be? And then the work is better. So, and that helps with knowing exactly who I am and what I bring, and being super prepared when you arrive. Like, be complete, like off book isn't even like, you can't, there cannot be script in your hands. Like, you got to come ready to mingle, especially if you're like a co-star, which is like just a couple lines, which is like what I've done in those big jobs that you mentioned with that 90s show and Sex Lives of College Girls. Your job isn't to like be super interesting. It's just to fill out the world. And like, I played a frat guy and I played a waiter. And it's like, you're not supposed to change the world with those parts. You're just supposed to, come in and do it and leave. So I think that was the big aha moment for me, is being like, you play a tiny part in this much bigger thing. So if you can do that tiny part perfectly and just like know what you need to do and don't step out of bounds and have a good attitude, that is the secret to being on set for something. Whereas theater ends up feeling more like a family and like all that. It's a different thing, but I love doing it. And then I've written a short film that is currently in the festival circuit, been in short films, done all of that, and getting to play a little bit more, roles, with a little bit more dialogue is also so much fun, because then you get to dip your toe even further into it. But I can't wait to do more of it. I'm so hungry to do more of it. I'm writing things to try to make happen so that I can do more of it. But anytime I get a film TV audition, I am just thrilled, because it is such a good muscle to continue to exercise, especially while I'm doing this broad musical comedy, just to remind myself that like, subtlety is nice, not to move your face so much, that kind of thing. It's, again, but I could talk about that. That should be its own podcast episode on some other podcast, because I could just ramble for like about the exciting differences between the two and also how they intersect. But yeah, different beasts that I'm dying to do more of. So that's part of my manifesting.
That's awesome. And so you kind of predicted the next question, but you also co-wrote and starred in a short film called Costa.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about Costa, like what sparked the idea and what drove you to bring it to life as a short film?
Of course. I'm plugging you in so my computer doesn't die. Co-star was actually very much based on my experience doing my co-star roles on that 90s show and the Sex Lives of College Girls, as well as Eddie Gray, my co-writer and the brilliant director of that short's, experienced doing co-star roles on TV, but as well as all of our friends. You hear with co-stars, and you have only a few lines. I've had friends that have gotten cut from those episodes because it's just sometimes that happens. You end up on the cutting room floor, nothing's guaranteed. And but also how simultaneously you do understand that it's relatively insignificant in the grand scheme of the episode, the show, whatever you're doing. But as an actor, it's a huge deal. It feels like a huge deal. It's your first foray into this like world that feels so unattainable, like Hollywood. And so you getting to, be on a call sheet with some people you really admire, it's a really special thing. Getting direction from Mindy Kaling, like that was a huge deal for me. And so co-star came about being like, I did sort of host a little bit of a viewing party when the first episode of this Sex Eyes of Carlos came out. I was in the first episode, so hosted a few people over and we watched it. And I luckily had known that I was not cut from the episode, but I thought the idea of having your friends host a thing for you and you becoming sort of a monster, thinking that you're, the cat's pajamas because you've been on the TV show, and then to find out just before they press play that you've been cut from it, and like how to avoid telling the truth, but how to avoid pressing play. Like I thought that was a brilliant idea for a short film, and I've been sitting on that sort of logline idea for a while. And Eddie Gray, who's a friend of mine, he was like, we need to do something together. We have the exact same sense of humor and the exact same comedic references. I'm like, exactly. So when we were brainstorming ideas, I'm like, I've been thinking about this idea for a while and I think it'd be really funny. So we sat down and wrote this thing and made it. And filmed it over the course of one day, did like a 15-hour day of shooting. And we're super proud of it. It is super weird and like funny and sort of so like captured the feeling that we wanted to of like this kind of monster, but also it's like all of us actors like want the same thing, and like what does it mean to be competitive with your friends and all that stuff. So I'm very happy with it. It's like a 9-minute short. It's like a little nibble, a little bite, but it's a blast. And we filmed it in October of 2023 and is now like doing the festival circuit. So it feels like forever ago when we were in that room filming it. But we're very proud of it. I can't wait for it to be done with the festival stuff so we could just like be released, because I think people will really enjoy it.
Oh, I can't wait to see it. I love that concept.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because it's like full of drama, which I love.
Oh, I can't wait to see it. So you're also writing the book for the Disaster Marathon of 1904, a new musical comedy that was recently released, part of the 2024 New Musicals Lab. So what has the process been like developing a brand new show from the ground up, and what did you take away from that 8-day workshop experience?
Oh, I'll tell you. 1 second. I'm going to hold you for 1 second so I can pee. I'll be right back.
Of course.
Okay.
The Disaster Marathon of 1904. I was approached by Jake Ryan Smith in, oh God, would have been August of 2023. Got a lot of like incubation things happened in that year, now that I'm realizing it, 2023. But he was like, hey, he texted me and he's like, hey, would you ever want to write a book of a musical? And then I said, like, I texted back, does a bear shit in the woods? Like, I've always wanted to write a book of a musical. And he's like, I have this idea based on this like thing that I remembered learning about, but I just saw like it getting, like someone was talking about it on TikTok and it reminded me, and I think it would be an amazing idea for a musical. This marathon that happened at the 1904 St. Louis Olympics. And I'm like, okay, like so we met, I did a little bit of research on it. We met, thought about like theoretically what the show would look like if it were to become a musical. And then I went for months into research mode about how can we tell this story. I bought every book there is about this marathon, including like the book that just goes over the scores and times of all the events of that year. I like tried to learn as much as I possibly could so that I could have enough knowledge to figure out how to whittle this big story into a musical. And in that time, we brought on Dan Mertzleft, who is like kind of responsible for the Ratatouille musical. He's the one that sort of like was part of the incubation of that blowing up. A very talented and very funny guy. So they've worked together before as composers, and I was admirers of their work before. They wrote the song "In My Head" that Andrew Feldman and Joe Serafini like sang it just like this beautiful song. And it was on my Spotify Wrapped. I was like a fan of the two first. So I was like, yeah, right. So good. Come on. Are you kidding me? And when we all just like over the course of like several times, you know, we just would constantly go to one of their apartments because they have pianos at both their apartments, a keyboard, and just sat and we're like, what could this look like? What is our end to this thing? And had so much fun writing it. And then we, in like February or January of 2024, were approached we sort of knew a contact at New Musicals Lab, like what you mentioned. And they were like, hey, so we understand that you're working on this show. We'd love for you to be part of our New Musicals Lab this summer. And like you will essentially have anything available to you that you want. You could use your time there just with you guys in a room so you can write it, or you could have access to these college students that are here to perform and help with your musical. I was like, whoa, this sounds incredible. And so we said yes, but that also gave us a deadline, which was very helpful for us because it was like, okay, something has to happen before we get there. So we had written a couple songs, and I had written an outline of a book and then a version of the full book before we got to, you know, Virginia, where this thing was. And then so we arrive and meet the students for the first time who we'd pre-cast in these roles. There's 10 students, all of them I worship. And we weren't aware that they were handed the music before and learned everything we had given them beforehand. We were not told that they were going to come in completely ready. We thought all of our week there would be like our 8 days would be just teaching them the music, and then we'd present a few songs and maybe a few scenes. They're like, so we got to we introduced ourselves being like, oh, hi. And then they're like, well, do you want to hear the songs? And we're like, what do you mean? And we sang through these songs we've only heard in our heads and demos that they've created, completely beautifully sung, perfectly, no notes. So we went, oh, okay. We left that day, and that night we're like, we need to write the whole thing while we're here because we will have nothing to do in the room with them, because we thought most of our time would be teaching music. But they really came in knowing their stuff. So we're like, okay, which really forced us to really finish like writing the score, working on the book in the room, getting to know like the strengths of these actors and like what could be possible, and like getting to work with it, getting our hands dirty with it. And we presented a full version of the show by the end of the 8 days. So we presented like a reading version of the show. It's like a 1-act musical. And we were so proud of it. We are so proud of it. And it really, we're such big fans of that program. So if anyone listening is like, oh, I'm writing a musical and want like something to look like, the New Musicals Lab at the Ferguson Center in Newport News, Virginia, unbelievable. And they gave us that. We had a band, like, because Dan's a genius and orchestrated it. Like so Jan and Jake together are a crazy team. So we would just during the day be with these students, getting the show, you know, in a place that we loved, and then would go home and have a few White Claws and like bang out more songs, better scenes. How can we make this better? It was the most like exhausting and inspiring week ever. And we just actually, last week I had a vacation planned, and we happened to get into this thing called Broadway Shark Tank, which happens in New York, where so it's like 130 shows submit. We were one of the 6 selected, and then we presented it and won. So we're hoping like the show will continue to have a life, because we're very proud of it. I think you guys would gag over this music, truly. If you already like In My Head, like the sounds that it sort of matches that vibe. And it's very funny, at least I think so. I'm a little biased, but getting to exercise the writing part of my brain, like with all the content creation, has been so great, but to work on these longer form things like what we've discussed have been the most rewarding. Like, come on, it is so cool having other people say your words. It's a special thing.
That workshop, the whole time you were telling that story, I was like, that is the definition of locked in.
Oh my God. Yeah. It was like lock in, girls.
Definition of lock in. And
yes, we had no choice. It was like, otherwise we'll let down these 10 college students who are like, we're ready. And I just adore every single one of them. I'm like, I want them all to succeed. I think they're all absolutely perfect. And we actually, Alex Ross, who was our Frederick Lors in the reading at New Musicals Lab, we asked, because he goes to Ithaca, we asked for the presentation that happened last week if he'd come down and reprise his role just for this reading, because we're like, we love you, would love you to do the songs again, like, because he has like a big song, it sounds amazing. So like it was just his first like thing in New York, and we're like, come on down, because he's a rising senior in college. So it's like also to provide that for someone that's like a few years younger than us is also really cool. It was just an excellent program and an excellent experience. And I'm like, I cherish those 8 days. They flew by, but also were so dense because every single waking moment was spent working on the show. So it's very fun. And then we're already, start early days working on our second show together, all three of us. So we're very excited.
I'm so excited.
Yes.
That's an awesome journey.
Yeah, we'll
And
see. I
who
can't
knows,
wait for you to hear it.
Yeah, maybe we'll see it on Broadway sometime.
We'll see. The dream would be to do like a great off-Broadway run of the show. That's like our dream. Like a great sort of 9-person cast off-Broadway production of the show. But it's much easier said than done, but we'll see.
And I'd kill for that. Oh.
Yeah, me too.
That'd be awesome. And so looking back at all that you've achieved in this industry, what advice would you give to your younger self, and what advice would you give to aspiring performers?
Oh, my younger self, oh gosh. I would probably give a version of the advice that I said earlier about being like, just focus on yourself and then you'll get closer to becoming, who you want to be as a performer. Like, it's not like, oh, the farther you get from yourself, the better actor you are. It's the opposite. So I would probably go for that. But also to, I would probably, this is so specific, but I would go back and say your taste now and who you admire and the kind of work you admire, like follow that, because it's the people that you surround yourself with, and people are like, God, this person in my class, I just love, I think they're brilliant, like whether it be an acting class or otherwise, like, oh, I just think you're amazing. There's a reason you feel that, and know that a few years from now, those people are going to become like the biggest people of all time, like huge, successful folks. Just because, like, follow that instinct, being like people that you want to work with, people that you are drawn to, that you're like, God, I don't know what it is about you, but you have like a specialness. I think make sure that you cultivate that. And if people see that in you, believe them, because it's the people to your left and to your right when you're in the beginnings of your career that are going to be the ones to end up becoming, the big deal, that kind of thing. So I don't really know if that's like advice, but more like I would tell my younger self, like, by the way, the people who you think are special, everyone's going to catch up and they're going to think that they're special too. And that's going to be incredible to watch. And it's very validating as a person to be like, I knew it. There's a lot of moments in my life recently where I'm like, I knew it. That person that has that something special, and I saw it, and now look what's happening. So I do try to really listen to that gut instinct. And that's how I felt when I started working with Jake and Dan. I'm like, these two people I think are going to become impossible to work with. I must work with them now before they become like Pascal and Paul, So it's stuff like that, and always following that. To be someone like Eddie Gray working on Co-Star, the people that we cast in Co-Star, I'm always like, who has that special thing that I'm just like, I want to just share a room with you. I think I would tell my younger self, like, that instinct, just cultivate it. Don't ignore that. Like, follow that. That is part of your superpower, is like kind of knowing where magic sits. I think that was like another like weird answer, but I think that's what I would say to my younger self. And advice, I think the advice I would give to young folks is you have to be as nice as humanly possible. There's no excuse. You can't be mean. You cannot be rude. You cannot lead with that. You can say what you want about people behind closed doors with people you trust, but like, I'm telling you, the amount that I've seen, especially just with with social media in general, like everything you say on the internet especially can and will be used against you in the court of law. And I just be careful. It never is good. Never a good idea to put someone down. Never. It's never a good idea. Unless, of course, they do something that is morally like wrong. Then put them down all you want. They deserve it. But if you're just being mean, like if someone posts a singing video and then you say a mean comment in that video, I think that makes you a trash person. And people do not forget things like that. People don't forget stuff. So if you use social media really casually and you like sort of like tearing people down, I urge you, stop now, stop it. Because it might feel good in the moment, but 5 years from now, the person that you made fun of could be a casting director. And that casting director could be like, I know this person. This person commented this thing on my video and I've never forgotten it, because people do not forget the way you make them feel. They don't. And that could cost you. Of course, you shouldn't be mean because you shouldn't be mean, but some people need a little bit of extra kick where it's like, guess what? It'll actually affect you in your career if you're mean. So if that is enough reason for you to stop, then do it. Hopefully you don't need that extra push of like, it might hurt you in your career. You should just be a nice person. But some people actually do need the dose of reality of being like, everything has a price. And that little, like maybe the joy of serotonin you got from like ruining someone's day, which I'll never understand, but alas, like that will pay. You're going to have to pay for that later. And I just say, avoid it all. Be a person that everyone, and if you're not in the room and your name comes up, people are like, oh, that person is so nice. What a nice person. Because that's the best. Like, it doesn't matter if someone that you know is really mean is getting farther than you in their career earlier than you. You're like, oh, I'm telling you, it always pays to be nice. Nice guys finish last. I don't believe in that phrase. I think kindness, work hard, be nice is what my theater teacher always said to me in high school. And I cannot emphasize enough that it is those two things. Work hard, be nice, the rest will fall into place. I guarantee it. And please don't be mean. I could just say it for a million years. Do not be mean or put others down. It is just, we all have our moments. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I am saying people remember how you make them feel. And it's never worth it. It is never worth it. Hopefully I got the point across.
Preach and and on that incredibly positive note, that's a wrap on our inspirational Behind the Curtain episode. Thank you, Tyler, for joining us for our
Of course. Thank you for having me, y'all. And thank you for your very thoughtful questions. I feel very, very cared for by all of your preparation and like all the things that you came armed with. I'm like, oh my God, I'd love to talk about that. So thank you both for being excellent interviewers. I very much appreciate.
Oh, you're the greatest.